What is going on, guys? It's Justin from the J Media, back with another video. Today we're doing some mods on my Honda Civic Si, and yeah, this has been a long time coming. I'm over here at Long's Automotive, and I'm using the lift after hours to work on it. So today we'll be installing some brake rotors and brake pads. So I went with StopTech front and rear brake rotors, draw and slotted, as well as some StockTech rotors, pads and rotors. So first step, getting it up in the air, take off the wheels. So if you don't have a lift, that's fine. You can just use a jack and jack stance. Do it the old school way. If I were to work on it at home, I'll be using a jack and jack stance. If you have access to a lift, then that's awesome. But yeah, just get your car up in the air and take off the wheels. Okay, so I have all my wheels off. While they're off, I'm traveling E-Man over here to help me balance my wheels too. So anyways, let's get back to the install. Super easy. So over here, these are the old rotors as well as pads. I believe these rotors were StopTech. When I got the car, they already had it. But if you come around here and see, they look pretty worn out. You can see some of the groove is already gone. So yeah. And they make a lot of squeaking noise, so it's about time I replaced it. The new stuff are over here. So like I said, I went with StopTech, many different brands, but I wanted something that fits my budget, so went with StopTech. And I labeled them, so we have the fronts and the rears here. So let's go ahead and take off the stock ones first. So super easy. Let me show you guys the process. And I've done brake and rotors on a bunch of different cars. For the most part, for Hondas, a lot of Japanese brands like Hondas, Toyotas, I think even Mitsubishis, the size are pretty similar. I don't have a big brake kit. So what you want to do is remove this guy. Let me come around. Remove this and this bolt here. These are two 14 millimeters. And then this part comes off. You can remove your brake pads. And then you remove the actual caliper right here. This one and this one, which is two 17 millimeter bolts. So yeah, pretty easy. So you guys saw, that's pretty quick. I took it off. Like I said, two 14 millimeter bolts holding the this guy in place, and then two 17 millimeter bolts holding the caliper in place. Comes right off. And then for the rotor, comes right off as well. Some rotors have like a screw you have to unscrew, but yeah, pretty much comes right off. Let me go ahead and take all of them off first before getting to the installation. Alright, so took off the fronts. The rears are a little bit different. So you guys notice on the fronts, I said it is two 14 millimeter bolts right here holding the caliper, and then two more 17 millimeter bolts. For the rear is a little different. Let me adjust the lighting here so you guys can see. So this bolt right here as well as here, these two are still going to be 14 millimeters, and the other two more bolts on the inside right here 14 millimeters as well. So on the rears, 4 14mm bolts to remove. So I got the rear brake pads as well as rotors out. Let me show you guys how nasty they are. So like I said, since I bought the car, these are already on the car. Super squeaky, super rusted out. They look horrible. Even the fronts, they look pretty nasty. So yeah, they squeak a lot. Looks like it's pretty rusted out. So I'm pretty excited to put on these new brake pads and rotors. Okay, so now that I have everything off, I'm gonna go ahead and prep for putting the brake pads and rotors on. So we'll knock out the fronts first. What you want to do is use a brake compressor to compress the piston over here, otherwise it's going to be hard to slot in your brake pads later. So that's this tool, a brake compressor. If you don't have it, that's fine. You could use like your old brake pads and use a flat tip screwdriver to sandwich it just to push the pistons back. So that, and then I can slap the rotors on. You also want to lube up some brake lubricant on this side of the brake pads on the outside, just so they don't squeak. Next, I'm gonna slap on the rotor. So easy. Just gotta center it like so. And usually I like to put a lug nut, thread it on. You don't have to shoot it or anything, just so it doesn't stay flimsy whenever I'm putting on my caliper. And pretty much putting it on is like taking it off in reverse. So like I say, I have my rotors on, put one lug nut, just thread it by hand just so it doesn't stay flimsy. And the next thing is you're gonna pick up this bracket right here. You're gonna reattach it. So this with the two 17mm bolts. Like I said, all we did was take out these two 17mm bolts and two 14mm bolts. So you're just gonna put this on like so, and just put the 17mm bolts from the back. Okay, so right now I have these two 17mm bolts threaded by hand. You can use a gun as well, but I usually thread it by hand. If you use a gun, a power tool, make sure to thread it by hand after. Use a wrench or ratcheting wrench just so you can make sure it's nice and tight. And then pretty much just put my brake pads. Before that, like I said, you have to lube it up. So that's what I'll be doing, using some grease. When you buy brake pads, usually they provide grease as well if you don't have this. Alright, so now that they're nice and greasy, you want to go ahead and put in your brake pads. So pretty much like so, just slot it in. And if you guys are wondering which brake pad goes to the front and which goes to the back, the front one looks like that. The rear one pretty much looks the same, except for it has this little thing right here. Let me show you on the other side, which I haven't done. So that goes on the front, and this with this little nipple goes on the back. Okay, so now that that is in place, I can go ahead and remove my lug nut, and I already went ahead and compressed the piston. You can pretty much slap this cover back on and use your two 14mm bolts and get it nice and tight. And bam, just like that, you have your brake pads and rotors on for the fronts. Let me go ahead and quickly knock out the other side off camera, and then I'll get to installing the rears. And just like that, we have the other passenger front in. So let me go ahead and knock out the rears. So like I said, everything is pretty much in reverse. You're gonna go ahead and take your rear rotor, slap it on, and then for the rears, they're all 14mm bolts. And make sure to go ahead and compress your piston as well as lube up your brake pads as well. And now you're gonna put the lube on the brake pads. So this is how the new StopTech brake pad and rotors look. These are the fronts. I went in the drill and slotted rotors and the brake pads. And on the rear, same thing. Went with the drill and slotted rotors from StopTech as well as the StopTech street pads. And if you guys are wondering, for the set of all 4 rotors as well as pads, I paid, I want to say, about $300 for the whole set, which is pretty good price if you ask me. There's a whole bunch of different brands you could go for. If you're on a budget, you could get stuff as cheap as slightly under $200 for the whole set. Or if you're trying to ball out and get something really aggressive, I've seen big brake kits costing, you know, up to $1,000 or more. So it really depends on your budget, whether your whether your rotors and pads are meant for daily driving or track driving. For me, I just wanted something that's a little bit more aggressive for the street. Maybe eventually I'll track it, but for now, I just want a good street setup. Alright, so finally done with the brake pads and brake rotors install. So make sure to pump your brakes once you're done. So by pumping, what I mean is like just stepping on the brakes a few times just to make sure it's nice and compressed. because earlier when I said using the piston to decompress it so it's easier to install, you need to pump it back. Otherwise, whenever you start driving, you feel like you don't have any brakes for a few seconds. So it's pretty dangerous. Make sure to pump your brakes at least 3 to 5 times. Of course, you know, once the brake pads and rotors are on, off camera, you know, you put on your wheels, torque down the wheels, all that good stuff. So I did all that. It's pretty late, so I'm just gonna head home right now. Again, I hope you guys like the Civic Si videos. I have more installation mods coming, so make sure to subscribe if you're a fan of my 8th Gen Honda Civic Si. Again, if you stay to the end, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.